Lazarus means life and death. What's up, people? Welcome back to Chris Chats Comics. My name is Chris Gonzalez, and I'm back again for another episode of Trade Talk Tuesdays. And I know it's been a long time coming, but I'm finally going to be going over Absolute Superman Volume 2, so stay tuned. Welcome back, and yes, Trade Talk Tuesdays is the video series where I highlight and discuss either one or a couple of collected editions, whether they're a new book coming out or something that's in my collection already. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a trade paperback. It could be a hardcover or an original graphic novel, whatever. But yeah, so like I mentioned, this week's episode, I'm going to be going over Absolute Superman. This is Volume 2, Son of the Demon. And like I always do, I'm going to be reading the back excerpt. So, for 5 years, Superman has been on the run, hounded across our planets, treated like a criminal. When the mysterious Omega Men finally catch up to him, they are determined to plead their case. Only with his help and by unleashing the full scope of his terrifying power can they put an end to the Lazarus Corporation and its lord, the notorious Demon's Head and murderer of millions, Ra's al Ghul. But Ra's has his own offer for the Superman, and once the mad scientist Brainiac gets his claws into Kal-El's mind, he may have no choice but to accept it. Will Kal-El be able to contain his rage, or will his anger engulf the whole world? So, yeah, so this volume, this trade paperback, it collects Absolute Superman issues number 7 through 14, and again, it goes over this Son of the Demon arc. And Jason Aaron, he is the writer of this series, and in this volume, there are multiple artists. The main one is Rafa Sandoval, Carmine Di Giandomenico, and Fico Ossio does an issue, and the colorist is Ulysses Ariola, and Becca Carey is the letterer. So I've been enjoying most of the Absolute titles, Batman being my favorite. I think Martian Manhunter is still my second favorite. And then it's either 3 through 5 is interchangeable between Wonder Woman, Flash, and Superman. And Green Lantern, unfortunately, is at the bottom of that list. But yeah, this volume just continues to highlight and demonstrate how great this series in particular has been. Jason Aaron, I think he's doing a phenomenal job. And this volume basically covers Superman's struggle to utilize his full strength against the Lazarus Corps. He can easily just defeat and kill anybody who stands his way, but he's not like that. His personality dictates that he's a more gentler person, and he views life in a more optimistic way. So throughout this volume, it was just Superman. He goes through a lot of challenges trying to determine whether he should use his, fully utilize his power. And meanwhile, the main villain of this arc, like the excerpt said, is Ra's al Ghul. He's looking for an heir to his empire, much like he does in the main line. But for those who are familiar with Ra's al Ghul, he's a Batman villain. But in this universe, he is Superman's villain for now. And yeah, in this, he is the CEO of a corporation that is, set up all over the world, and they're depleting the resources from the countries they have settled in. So this book has a commentary on classism, just the oligarchy, and definitely a lot of political undertones that I was surprised that Jason Aaron utilized in this story. So issue 7, the first issue of the series, goes over Brainiac and essentially his origin, this version of Brainiac. And yeah, so it begins with the Omega Men. They're essentially the rebels. They're infiltrating a Lazarus base, and a group of them, they meet some terrifying fates, because yeah, look at it, you can tell by the artwork, and I believe this is Carmine Di Giamenico. So really dug the artwork, and again, the design of Brainiac is just really creepy. A lot of horror elements infused in this story. So, and a lot of body horror. So essentially it just goes over this version of Brainiac and how he came to be, and you kind of sympathize for Brainiac a little bit, because again, flashes back, he essentially is just, there are multiple Brainiacs, he's just a copy, and even though he is technically Brainiac, he gets treated like shit from the older models, because he's like Brainiac, what is he? Brainiac 419,732. So yeah, he is given the task to essentially clean up the trash, and eventually he goes insane, and it doesn't go into further exploration about how Brainiac made his way onto Earth, because again, I'm assuming Brainiac, is an alien entity, alien artificial intelligence, but it doesn't really get into how he came to Earth. But I just thought the backstory that was given to him, you understand his motivations. I was empathetic towards Brainiac, and I credit Jason Aaron through his writing, being able to make this character so sympathetic, even though he's a monster. So again, brilliant, creepy artwork from Carmine. So yeah, so that was pretty much issue 7, and then look at this cool spread page. Brainiac, he's trying to figure out weaknesses of Superman, and he essentially develops kryptonite from studying Krypton, and so that will come into play later on. And then issue 8, we get introduced to this version of Ra's al Ghul, and this dude, he's brutal, he's evil, he's even more evil than the mainline version of him. And yeah, and so we're just in issue 8, he's killing off these Omega Men who have infiltrated his one of their headquarters, Lazarus headquarters, and this fight just shows how brutal this guy is. And there's a scene where he turns one of the Omega Men into a baby, and he just drops him over from a very high rise building. So this guy, he's evil. He'll kill anybody that stands in his way. And then we flash back to Clark. He's in Smallville now. He's visiting Martha, and compared to mainline Superman, this version of Kal-El, he was in Krypton well into his childhood. He didn't leave as an infant baby. He stayed on Krypton until he was early teenage years, and then he saw his whole planet get destroyed. So that's a main difference between this version and the mainline version of Superman. So he came to Earth much later, and he still met Martha and Jonathan Kent, but I thought this part was pretty emotional, because Martha, she's suffering from dementia, so she doesn't recognize Kal-El. And then Kal-El gets visited by Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. They're trying to, talk some sense into Kal-El and convince him to fight against Lazarus. But Kal-El, again, he's not really interested at first. And then all of a sudden Kal-El gets attacked and he gets shot by a kryptonite-laced bullet, so that's really affecting him negatively. And yeah, but like I mentioned, through the dialogue between Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen in this issue, there were a lot of political undertones. Lazarus, to me, symbolized the far right, and then the Omega Men, the radicals, the rebels, they symbolize the far left to me. So, and again, Jason Aaron might have not even had those intentions when he was writing this. That's what I just picked up as I was reading this issue, because, through what's going on in our real life, I just made that connection. And yeah, so Brainiac, he had experimented on Christopher Smith. He was one of the Peacemakers that got his butt kicked by Superman in the first volume. So Brainiac has made some adjustments and added some more tech to him. So this version of Peacemaker and Superman, they have a rematch. And yeah, the artwork by Rafa Sandoval, really dope, and I thought this was a cool image. And Ulysses, I really dug his colors. This run definitely leans more into the sci-fi aspects, and it reminded me a lot of the Krypton elements in the movie Man of Steel, where it felt like Zack Snyder it was a film by Zack Snyder. That story and that particular sequence from the movie just felt like it leans more into the sci-fi elements, and I felt like this story, this Absolute Superman, is definitely leaning more into the sci-fi elements. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so yeah, Lois Lane, she eventually gets captured again by Lazarus, and so she's working on the inside. And then the Omega Men, they are trying to save Superman by removing the kryptonite bullets. And you figure out that, Primus, she is trying to convince Superman that, hey, we need to start killing these Lazarus employees because they are spreading nothing but terror throughout the world, and they don't care about anybody but themselves. So, like, with your power, we can end them once and for all. But again, just how Superman is. He just doesn't want to kill for the sake of killing. He wants to, bring justice in a moral way. So, and then to get the remaining kryptonite out of him, Primus, the leader of the Omega Men, she brought in this, it's called a father box, but it's essentially a mother box, and they use that to remove the kryptonite. So there's a lot of apocalyptic tech in this story, and so we'll see because how this universe is created from Darkseid's energy, so I wonder if there's an actual separate version of Darkseid in this universe, but we'll see. But so yeah, I thought this section was pretty cool. Ra's al Ghul essentially interrogating Lois and threatening her father's life if she doesn't work with him. So and then they infiltrate this base, and I did appreciate in this issue in particular they're referencing the other parts of the Absolute line. That they mentioned stuff in Batman. So I thought bringing the world's the various titles together. I'm enjoying this, but yeah, I just really thought that, and this is drawn by Fico Ossio, this particular section. So yeah, I just thought what Jason Aaron's doing in this was, it's his writing's been standing out. I feel like he's doing a really good job, and then there are just moments where it's it amazes me how timely this story is with everything going on in the world right now. But again, a lot of political undertones, and again, we find out that eventually Jimmy gets captured again, and then Lois is questioning him again, because throughout the first volume and this volume, you can see how, Lois, she started as a Lazarus Corps agent, and then she slowly, her views on them are changing, and yeah, and she's essentially becoming she's developing more and more of those characteristics that we know Lois Lane has in the mainline comics. So eventually Superman does get captured by Lazarus, and Brainiac captures him. And then we find out that Primus, who has been the leader of the Lazarus group, she's actually Talia al Ghul, and that revelation wasn't really a surprise to me. See, that's Primus, but she is really Talia, this version of Talia, and she's been working with Ra's al Ghul the entire time. So, and she literally stabbed Clark in the back. But yeah, that reveal, he got stabbed. That reveal wasn't really a surprise to me. I kind of saw it coming, but it was still intriguing. And then this is issue 11. Essentially, Brainiac is doing a bunch of experiments on Clark, and he's essentially putting Clark in like a simulation to push Clark to succumb to using his his full power to kill his enemies, essentially, because that's what Ra's al Ghul wants. He wants Superman to go over the line, and he wants Superman to be willing to kill and take over Lazarus for him. Again, same thing in the main line, but instead of Batman being Ra's al Ghul's heir, in this version, Ra's wants Superman to be his heir. And again, I just thought that it's really compelling, but again, Lois and Jimmy help Clark escape, or Kal-El, I should say. And there were other Brainiac copies that are working under the main Brainiac, but the main Brainiac is treating them like shit. So Superman, he tries to, connect with these other versions of Brainiac, like, hey, like, you're being treated like shit, you should help me. And they eventually do. So I thought this was really really compelling. And then eventually General Lane, aka Lois's father, he infiltrates the base to help save his daughter. And I thought that sequence was pretty cool because he's pretty badass. And even though we don't really get a lot of General Lane, I still felt for him. And spoilers, General Lane eventually dies, and he does while he's saving his daughter. So I thought that was even though we didn't spend a lot of time with him, I thought that was a pretty cool moment. But again, Brainiac's playing this simulation, but Clark is able to escape. But Brainiac, again, he's trying to push Clark into killing him. But really beautiful. I love the colors. And shout out to Becca Carey. Anytime Clark's like, he has an artificial intelligence, which is essentially his cape and part of his armor, called Soul. And every time Soul communicates, he has this cool text. So shout out to Becca Carey on the lettering. So yeah, and then get to one of the last few issues. So Superman, they go back to Smallville, him, Lois, and Jimmy, they go back to Smallville because, again, Lazarus is taking over the town. And there's a final battle, which is pretty epic. The last couple issues are at this battle. It's called the Battle of the Kansas. Battle of Smallville, Battle of Kansas. It's really, really compelling. And it's just epic. And then eventually, because Lazarus invades, and I just like how the citizens of Smallville, they all teamed up together, and they know that Superman is on their side. And it just goes back to those core elements, those core characteristics of Superman that I think Jason Aaron nailed down really well. And again, this whole last issue is just a epic fight within Smallville. And yeah, the citizens are working together with the Omega Men to fight off Lazarus. And then, yeah, so again, just look at this. Look at just the chaotic destruction. Just the artwork just was able to perfectly showcase the scope of this battle. So shout out to Sandoval. His artwork was phenomenal. Definitely. And with the colors, it just was really enticing. So yeah, eventually the last issue is just a straight up fight between just Ra's al Ghul and Clark. So they have a fight. It's epic. Ra's has a sword just made of entirely of kryptonite, just badass. But eventually, Brainiac, he tries to hack Soul, the artificial intelligence, and he does so for a little bit. But then Soul was able to hack Brainiac's systems, and essentially to prevent Brainiac from causing further damage, Soul purges himself and Brainiac to help Superman and have a fair fight against Ra's. But yeah, man, this last issue is just really epic. The action was great, very compelling, and just a badass fight between Ra's and Superman. Just look at the coloring. Coloring's amazing. And then the Peacemakers, I thought the Peacemakers, they see what they're doing and all the destruction that they're causing, and they kind of have a turn, which was kind of rushed. That's my one critique that I do have. There are some pacing issues, definitely. Look at this double page spread, just epic. Shout out to Rafa Sandoval and Ulysses on the coloring. Just elevates this artwork. Just very kinetic and really detailed. So yeah, and again, Roz, he now more than ever after his defeat, he's like, "You're truly my heir, kill me." But Superman's like, "No, I'm not gonna kill you." So he eventually takes Roz to the people that Roz was oppressing, and he tells them to like, "Hey, he's your problem, do with him what you will, put him on trial for his crimes." And so that was great. And then the end of this volume of this trade was very, very emotional. It was bittersweet because spoilers, Martha Kent, she dies. So that's where we end. And that's just like, look at this. Her last gift to Kal-El was she made him a homemade suit. And that was the end of this. This was another phenomenal volume of Absolute Superman. Definitely thought it was better than the first one. So yeah, shout out to Jason Aaron, Rafa Sandoval, Carmine Di Domenico, Fico Ossio, everybody who produced and was part of this team, Becca Carey, Ulysses Ariola. You guys should just give yourselves a pat on the back because this was great storytelling, and it was very compelling. The artwork was very detailed and emotional, and I loved this book. So shout out to DC Comics doing great work with the Absolute line, and that was it. So let me know if you've been reading Absolute Superman, what your thoughts are in the comments. I would love to hear them. And yeah, so that was it for this episode of Trade Talk Tuesdays. And like I've mentioned before, the next episode I'm going to be going over the Tin Can Society by Image Comics. So I know I said I was going to be dropping that video on the same day as I'm dropping this video, but that's not going to happen because life was lifing and I had to take care of some stuff, so I'm not going to have enough time. So I'm either going to be dropping it this Thursday or just I'll drop it next Tuesday. So I'm still debating. So, but this is going to be the next episode. I'm going over the Tin Can Society. So yeah, that was it. So thanks for watching. I would really appreciate it if you like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. And yeah, that was it. So again, my name is Chris Gonzalez. This is Chris Chats Comics, and I'm out.